Barbara, we left this invisible last week because I just plumb ran out of time, but Barbara has prepared a presentation in line with Rotary International's commitment to involving diversity, equity, and inclusion in Rotary and everything we do. And so she's prepared a little presentation on the invisible knapsack. Barbara, are you on?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share. You should be able to share now.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So I wanted to just start this with a little story about when I first became aware of white privilege. I was, for 5 years, married to a man from Arcata sister city of Camapa, Nicaragua. And his children were here for 4 years. I lived with them for 4 years and just absolutely adored them and was never aware at all that they were experiencing any kind of racism. And in 2005, my stepdaughter and I started doing some diversity and inclusion workshops together. And she started telling me about all these different experiences she had had where she was the target of racism. And one of them being she was running to a class one time at Eureka High and somebody said, just keep running and don't stop till you get to the border. And, and that was shocking to me. And I realized when I first started learning about white privilege that there's privilege just in not having to even be aware that that sort of thing is happening. So that was the beginning of my education. And I came across this article, which I know Romy has been using in teaching in her classes for the last 20 years. But I came across this article last year when I was doing a little more education for myself around equity, inclusion, and diversity. And it's called Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. And it's based on an article that was written back in 1989 by Peggy McIntosh. If you want to learn more, you can look that up on the web. But here's what we're talking about. White privilege is like an invisible, weightless knapsack of special provisions, maps, passports, code books, visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks. It's like a package of unearned assets that we as white people can count on cashing in each day. I realized I had been taught about racism as something that puts others at a disadvantage, but had been taught not to see one of its corollary aspects, white privilege, which puts me at an advantage. So as she's listed in her article, I think she had 23 things that we don't have to think about as white people. And so I've pulled out, I think, 10 of them. So as I read through these, think about how having or not having this package of unearned assets has impacted your life and how your life would be different if the reverse were true. So the first one is, I can, if I wish, arrange to be in the company of people of my race most of the time. The next, if I should need to move, I can be pretty sure of renting or purchasing housing in an area which I can afford and in which I would want to live, and I can be pretty sure that my neighbors in such a location will be neutral or pleasant toward me. Number 3, I can be sure that my children will be given curricular materials that testify to the existence of their race. And I can easily buy posters, postcards, picture books, greeting cards, dolls or toys featuring people of my race, and I can go into a supermarket and find the staple foods that fit with my cultural traditions, or into a hairdresser's shop and find someone who can cut my hair. I can do well in a challenging situation without being called a credit to my race. Number 6, I am never asked to speak for all of the people of my racial group. And I can be pretty sure that if I ask to talk to the person in charge, I will be facing a person of my race. I can go home from most meetings of organizations I belong to feeling somewhat tied in rather than isolated, out of place, outnumbered, unheard, held at a distance, or feared. Number 9, I can be sure that if I need legal or medical help, my race will not work against me, and that people who are providing me those services will look like me. And then the last one, if my day, week, or year is going badly, I need not ask each negative episode or situation, whether it has racial overtones. So obviously, each of these questions gives us really something to ponder and think about, and I wish we could sit and have a long discussion about this together. But here are some things. I just pulled this from the Harvard Business Review that you can do to use your privilege for good. And first is figure out the parts of your identity that you think about least. And once you've pinpointed them, you've identified your ordinary privilege. Second, start learning what people who lack that ordinary privilege encounter as challenges at work, at school, and in their communities. And you can use the internet as a starting point for that. Third, look for opportunities to speak and act. And confronting people is only one of the many ways we can use our ordinary privilege. And instead, we can ask questions, raise issues, and add perspectives that are not organically emerging in discussions at work. You can finish reading that one if you like. And then fourth, be thoughtful about moments when you may inadvertently speak over the group you mean to support. It's not unusual to accidentally center ourselves instead of the people to whom we're trying to be an ally, but it is costly. And when it happens, step aside or step back and learn from those whose lives are directly affected by the issue, rather than presenting ourselves as the experts. Take their lead while using your ordinary privilege. So hopefully this gives us all something to think about and ponder, and perhaps we can discuss more at a later meeting or at sort of an out of meeting work session together.
Thank you, Barbara. Anybody have any thoughts that they'd like to share from themselves on your experience with your own privilege or lack thereof?
May I speak?
Please.
Howard here. Barbara, could we get a copy of your notes
Sure.
that you just went through? I found them very helpful, very interesting.
Yeah, Howard, I'll send them to you and I'll send the original article.
Yeah. Well, one comment I can make is I've had incredible privilege traveling around the world in all sorts of different countries because I'm white, and I think also because I'm American, but just being in a dominant culture, people have been so polite and nice to me, and the privilege comes in is very deferential. I think that I've come to realize just they're made my travel so wonderful, but also I've benefited from having privilege.
Thank you, Howard. Anyone else have thoughts on their own experiences, negative or positive?
Thank you, Barbara. What a great education on that. So essential. I think that a wonderful takeaway is that we need to speak up when we see it, when we see that something is unjust, unfair. It falls on the people with privilege to change the situation, not to wait to hear from others who are impacted negatively because of the lack of privilege. It's our responsibility.
Absolutely. And don't think for a moment that a comment or an action made or taken in the absence of the people that it would negatively impact doesn't matter if you don't check it. You know, it's right in line with our Rotary motto of the things we think, say, and do. When people have thoughts and express them that are negative toward other people, and those other people aren't around to either defend themselves or silence that by virtue of just being there, when we speak up in that moment, it helps that person temper their thoughts and words in future interactions. So it is important to speak up each and every time if there's something to be said about where somebody's gotten off the rails toward other people. It's just so important. And over time, consistency in checking the message can definitely change people's habits and ease things up for the other people that are being hurt by it. So thank you for keeping that in your thoughts, Barbara. Thank you for speaking today. And yes, if Romy and your committee would like to organize a breakout group for our club to hop in on, we'd be grateful for that. So, thank you.